は私の実力じゃありません。これは都合のいい夢ですね。
Oh no, Nozomi, you ain't escaping from the 9 to 5 anymore, girl! So yeah, I'll admit, I was holding off on talking about this Otona Precure 23 trademark licensing news until we got some more intel to talk about. Plus, I just didn't feel like making another video after the usual weekly affair. But no rest for the weary, am I right? So yeah, just looking at this logo, what would you assume this would represent? Maybe Hakuto for the time theming, and the fact that's also an anniversary season? Or hell, maybe Gold Princess based on the subtitle Power of Hope? It's yes 5, as if you couldn't tell by that prologue. I mean, not complaining, as it is a great series, and as the NHK polls have shown, both of its seasons are among the franchise's most popular, only second to the OG. As for what sort of project they'll be getting out of this, well, that's right in the title. Adult Precure. Apparently it's going to be a direct sequel taking place several years in the future, maybe when everyone is around the age of 23, which would put them in those awkward job hunting years, so yeah, I guess I kind of got my wish. Toei, you're just playing with me now, aren't ya? By my understanding, it's going to be a one-core series set to air later this year in October on NHK Educational, which, yeah, kind of sounds like it's going to be another kids show, but it's also going to be airing late, maybe 23 o'clock or 11 p.m, so again, for adults, and maybe some brats who stay up past bedtime. Now at first, that does sound kind of weird for a show amongst the Toei Trinity that has been targeting the younger age demographic for the longest time. But one, let me point you towards these manga. A lot of the Kamikita Futago's books were written for a more teenage to young adult demographic, with some darker stuff that has legit gotten my videos demonetized for how graphic some of it was. And two, look at these light novels. Yes, I'm making you do a lot of reading today, you better appreciate it. Again, these books were made for more teens with more mature subject matter, like Yuri dealing with her initial growing pains as a cure, or in the case of the Smile Team, stories about them becoming adults and dealing with the main stresses and issues of the working class, which, yeah, kind of makes me wonder why these books weren't just straight up adapted. Was it because they're 24 in these stories, so it didn't match up with that copyright? Well, actually, I do have my own theories, but more on that later. But yeah, with all that in mind, this was the next logical step, and has been a long time coming, especially considering how other members of the Toei Trinity have been kind of doing this sort of stuff for years. For instance, Kamen Rider Shin, no not that one, was meant to commemorate the franchise's 20th anniversary by making a movie that was supposed to appeal to the kids who grew up watching the original show riders and would be adults by that point. It sadly wasn't a successful project, no matter how much Shotaro Ishinomori says it's his favorite, but regardless, it did set a precedent of creating more older target demographic projects for aging fans of their shows. Super Sentai would get stuff like the direct-to-video movies called 10 Years Later, where they would bring back the original cast after a decade to follow up on their stories. And without the constraint of TV centers, they could do whatever they wanted, as will likely be the case for the S5 team, who definitely benefit from their season being well over a decade old at this point, with many of their fans at least being in their young adult years. Interestingly though, recently they haven't even waited a year to bring in some more mature direct-to-video stuff for their shows. I bring this up because there was another half to these announcements, with another very unlikely series also getting a sequel, Mahotsukai. Now again, nothing against this particular series. I mean, it's not my personal favorite, but it does kind of occupy an awkward standpoint in the franchise. It's set to get tentatively titled Mahotsukai Precure 2 sometime in 2024, and will also air late night on multiple stations, including Precure's usual Sunday morning home of TV Asahi. Now, with that in mind, it will be coming out when that series turns 8, which, yeah, depending on when its audience watched it, they'll kind of be in their teens just entering adulthood if they turn 18, but yeah, a bit of an odd one to go for in terms of that whole age thing. However, in terms of the show's story and how it ended, it actually does kind of make a lot of sense. I mean, much of the final 2 episodes of that series gave a good preview of what an adult Precure series would look like, up until Kotoa did some convenient age regression to be used in a few crossovers here and there. But yeah, if this is them experimenting with relatively more recent series, then I'm all for it. In fact, if it's successful enough, maybe we'll end up with an almost immediate direct-to-video sequel for Hirogar Sky. Wouldn't that be great? And of all the series that ended with actual adult cures, it's a good choice, especially for some of my commenters and a close friend of mine, Kirby Jackal, who's actually done a ton of fan art for Mahotsukai, which they've used in some great remix albums on their channel. They also provided some of the art for this video's thumbnails, so do consider checking them out both here on YouTube and on Instagram. Now, as for why these particular series are getting sequels beyond just popularity and story opportunities, I think, and this is more my conspiracy theorying again, it might have to do a lot with the writers of these shows. I think we can almost guarantee that these Yes 5 and Mahotsukai sequels will be entirely written by Yoshimi Narita and Isao Murayama respectively. After all, they're a couple of the longest running and most well-respected authors of this franchise. But with a lot of the new blood taking over projects like Hirogar Sky, they do kind of need something to do, and while they could write a little for the current season, honestly, I think Toei just wants them to do more of these legacy seasons. And if they're going to script out entire seasons, they may as well let them write what they feel most comfortable with. While I don't know if Narita likes Yes 5 or Happiness Charge more, the former is more worth looking back on in terms of its age, and meanwhile, I get the feeling that Murayama has always wanted to go back to Mahotsukai, which has been even kind of evidenced in some of his later works that straight up reuse elements from that season. Whatever the case, as long as both series are written by the original showrunners and entirely by them, without any secondary writer complications, then we should expect some solid scripts. But yeah, for now, these do sound like solid projects that will hopefully open up the doors for a lot more in the future. What do I kind of expect to see in the near future? Right off the bat, I would love to see a more satirical take on Precure a la Hikoni Sentai Akiba Ranger. This franchise has been parodied a lot over the years, so it's well past time they have a more self-aware series of their own. I also hope to see more direct-to-video movies of currently running series. They could do some inconsequential, yet still fun side stories, or even flesh out some side characters. Kamen Rider has done it for seasons like Revised to flesh out some of their lesser, and yet still important side characters. And most of all, I do hope it has a ripple effect on the franchise as a whole, so that it will widen out the audience to what it originally was. I think we've gone on more than enough about how Delicious Party felt overly focused on even younger demographic than normal, which, thanks to the sales numbers, may have acted as a bit of a wake-up call to Toei. I do really hope these projects are successful, if only to open up the floodgates for more creative ventures that can build a stronger audience. But yeah, those are all my general thoughts about this. But what are some of your own? What sort of 10-year after series do you kind of want to see, or hell, any kind of future series? Personally, I do want to see those Smile light novels get adapted, and maybe even some of the Kamikita Futago stories. This franchise isn't getting any younger, and neither am I, so I say just try everything. And until next time though, farewell for now my friends, and oh boy, sounds like Shin is having another breakdown over not getting a sequel. Hey dude, look on the bright side. I mean, you might be able to appear in another superhero Tyson movie.